morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio. So today, we need to take a look at a rather nice new Pokemon tool card. Apparently, it's called Big Parasol. Our translation comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet. Stop me if you've heard that one before. And it's going to sound a little bit familiar to some older players. While the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon, ignore all effects done by your opponent's Pokemon's attacks to any of your Pokemon. Sounds nice, eh? Now, this reminds me, the first thing that came to mind for me here was Unknown G. Now, Unknown G only actually worked on the Pokemon to which you attached it. I get that. But Unknown G stopped effects of attacks. It was one of these Pokemon that you attached as a tool rather than an actual tool, but the point was that you would use it to stop effects of attacks. So something like Machamp. Machamp was very, very big at the time. Machamp, for one fighting energy, got an instant KO on any basic Pokemon. And there were many, many basic Pokemon around at the time. I mean, these SP decks focused around stuff like Luxray and Garchomp were pretty much entirely basic decks. Level ups, level X's did count still as basic Pokemon. So you would use Unknown G so Takeout wouldn't be able to get an automatic one-hit KO. Well, on the one hand, this does protect all of your Pokemon, rather than just your active. Most of the time, it's not going to make a difference. Remember, this stops effects of attacks, does not stop damage. Now, there is one very crucial situation where it will stop effects of attacks to your bench Pokemon, and that is where you're dropping damage counters. Dropping damage counters isn't damage. Dropping damage counters is the effect of the attack. That is to say, it will be stopped. Now, one of the ones that springs to mind for me here is Blacephalon. The Blacephalon that came around, the Psychic one. Let's say the Psychic one. And that drops 4 damage counters anywhere you like. But if instead your opponent has exactly 3 prizes remaining, you get to drop 12 damage counters anywhere you like. But dropping damage counters isn't damage, it is an effect of an attack, so it will be stopped. The rule basically is if it does damage, it does damage. If it does anything else, it is the effect of an attack. So having your Big Parasol on the active would basically stop all of this. Yeah. This is one of the ones that we often forget. When it comes to effects of attacks, people often forget about damage counters. It's why I showed you Blacephalon nice and early on in this video. This is going to be one of the best uses for it. And Blacephalon is probably the biggest, baddest damage counter dropper we've got at the moment. But it's worth pointing out this will protect all of them. It basically means that Blacephalon does literally nothing. Now, obviously, they could gust a Pokemon without a Big Parasol into the active. Gutted. But unless they do, you're completely protected. Like I say, most of the time, it's not going to really be a big issue. Most of the time, it is just going to protect your active. But for things like damage counters, this is going to be pretty gosh darn big. Another one that will be very relevant, but unfortunately only in expanded, is the Greninja from Breakpoint. You see, the Greninja from Breakpoint's got Shadow Stitching. 1 colorless energy, 40 damage, until the end of your opponent's next turn. Each Pokemon your opponent has in play, in his or her hand, and in his or her discard pile, has no abilities. Turns off all your abilities. That's pretty bad. This would stop it affecting your Pokemon that were on the field. That's a very good thing. So like I say, there will be times this helps your bench Pokemon. Most of the time it's your active. And if we want to go for instant one-hit KOs, why don't we have a chat about the Rampardos from Ultra Prism? 3 fighting energy, but honestly most of the time you're talking a Super Boost energy. And you get an instant KO on any basic Pokemon. This will stop it nicely. But then we've got stuff like, Torkoal is probably one of my favourite examples here. Torkoal's got an absolutely punishing attack that will discard 2 energy from one of your Pokemon. And that's a lot. That is a kind of thing that sometimes will be dropped and you just don't come back from. 4 energy, 120, discard 2 energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Well, this stops that happening. They'll still do the 120 damage, don't get me wrong, but now they won't be discarding the energy. And the whole point of Torkoal V is you're 2-hit KOing, but you're 2-hit KOing while getting rid of 2 energy, so you're 2-hit KOing and stopping your opponent responding, and that sounds pretty good. Well, no, not anymore. Because you see, now you come along, and Torkoal just does 120, except they don't. They end up using Combustion Pillar, presumably using something like an Oranguru to get a fire energy on top of their deck, and then doing 180. But if you've got more than 180 HP, you're fine. You survive, you don't lose your energy, life is good. Any energy denial attack here will work very nicely indeed. The other thing, of course, we've got here is special conditions. So, if you take a Blacephalon GX, if they get a little bit desperate, if there's nothing else they can do, 1 fire energy, your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned and confused. But if you've got a big Parasol attached to you, the attack instead reads... It doesn't do anything. Sorry for the silence there, but I had to make my point. It in fact does nothing. It limits your opponent to only doing damage, and that's kind of hilarious. It's one that I like very much indeed. So getting rid of energy will be good. If you want another example of getting rid of energy, don't forget just the other day we looked at the new Center Scorch V, and that's got a lovely attack that for 1 energy does 20 damage. But you may choose to discard an energy from yourself and then an energy from the defending Pokemon. But if that defending Pokemon's got a big Parasol attached, there will be no getting rid of energy. You see where we're going for this? So we've got things like instant KOs with Rampardos. We've got damage counters and stuff with Blacephalon. We got special conditions with Blacephalon, getting rid of energy with Torkoal. And there's no real exhaustive list here, because we don't even know what's going to come out in the future. I mean, take something like Pinsir. It's a card that's always very, very much interested me. This is the one from Sun and Moon, whereby you flip a coin, if heads, put your opponent's active Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your opponent's hand. Won't work if you've got a big Parasol. Worth pointing out, of course, that we do have Beware GX that has a very similar kind of thing. For 4 energy, it's a GX attack, and you discard your opponent's active Pokemon. Though not to be outdone, we did actually have, it's not quite been released here yet, we're expecting it in Rebel Clash, but there is a Beware that's got the exact same thing, even for 4 colourless energy, except it's not a GX attack, and it has to be on a coin flip. But still, we've got a new Beware coming that does a similar thing. And there are some Pokemon that are going to need this more than others. And it really depends on the matchup. Depends what you're worried about. It depends what you think your opponent might be coming out with. However, how about that new Aggron that we looked at the other day? And by the other day, I mean a couple of hours ago. That new Aggron's got the sturdy ability we've seen on Pokemon like Donphan in the past, whereby if it's got full HP and would be KO'd by damage from an attack, it does not get KO'd, it goes down to 10 HP instead. The problem is things like poison or burn will be able to go through it, etc. Or you can try and do an instant KO or something. Well, Aggron's going to love Big Parasol, because now there will be no poisoning from an attack, burn from an attack, etc. Yeah, your opponent can drop a Galarian Zigzagoon, and that will still take them off full HP, and remember, Sturdy is an ability that only works on a Pokemon with full HP, but from an attack, it's not going down, and you're looking like you're in very, very nice shape indeed. Of course, we do have a nice pair now here with Stealthy Hood. Remember, you are very much limited to 1 Pokemon tool per Pokemon. You do get the odd exception, things like Genesect, for instance, can have an extra tool on, but most of the time it's 1 tool per player, or per Pokemon. 6 per player. Stealthy Hood, because 6 Pokemon. Stealthy Hood prevents all effects of your opponent's abilities done to the Pokemon this card is attached to, and removes existing effects. And then Big Parasol protects all of your Pokemon as long as you're active, but it doesn't remove existing effects. Of course, if you've got a Pokemon on the bench with Stealthy Hood attached, and a Pokemon in the active with a Big Parasol, then that bench Pokemon cannot really be touched by anything other than damage from attacks and is immune to abilities as well. That's going to be pretty good. I'm giving this 4 Wassies, and honestly, I think I might be underrating it. I think this is the kind of tool that could become absolutely huge. It's a very reactive card though, it's very metagame dependent. If we don't have lots of effects of attacks, it's not going to do anything. But if we have lots of effects of attacks, then it's going to be amazing. It really is very, very meta dependent. But this could be pretty gosh darned awesome. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to know what you think about this. I want to know your opinion. And of course, and this is very important, I would love to know which Pokemon, which effects of attacks you are most worried about and you're going to be using this against. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome regardless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.